Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from the UK. Today is Thursday, the 6th of June 2024, and apparently it's becoming a thing that I record these things on a Thursday lunch break. So here we are today, here to talk about some knitting. I don't think we have any crochet today, just knitting and a very brief spinning finished object. So if you haven't been here before, then welcome, and if you're coming back, thank you so much for being a regular viewer. Let's just jump right in, because I have a finished object, and more importantly maybe, I have some exciting new works in progress which I wanted to chat to you about. So you can probably see I have finished a shawl. You may remember at some point after a holiday, I had 3 shawls on the needles, which was crazy. 3 shawls and 4 pairs of socks. And this is shawl number 2 that is done. So only one remains, which I will show you in a second. I had shown you my finished Stephen West Faded Undulations shawl, I think last week. And this is my most recent one, and I think it's really pretty. This is a 1 skein shawl, can you believe it, out of 90 grams of hand spun. The pattern is by Amber O'Brien. It's the Woolsia shawl, which is a very simple shawl. I think you can use it for like advents and gradients and all kinds of things. And I think you could also, in fact, I know you could also use different weights of yarn, because the pattern is just sort of endlessly repeating. So you could use a different needle size, a thicker yarn, and just make it as long as you want, which is basically what I did. But yeah, can you believe this whole thing is 90 grams of fingering weight-ish yarn, and look how drapey it is. Isn't it beautiful? I feel like it just looks really nice, if I may say so myself. So it's just a simple eyelet pattern, and look at the gradient, look at the yarn. I love it. I love it so much, actually. A lot of times I find 1 skein shawls really small, but this one I think is actually going to be really nice. The yarn, as I mentioned, is hand spun. It is a woolen spun 2-ply gradient out of a bat from Spin Jones, who's in the UK, and I believe the bat was mostly merino and silk. So I'm not sure if you can see. It's got a nice like variation of tone even within the colors. And I think just the woolen spun yarn, this one I am really proud of, because it is drapey, it is really soft. And I think the issue with worsted spinning is that often when hand spinning it becomes a little bit, I don't want to say ropey, but it can do that because you're flattening the fiber, and then I think people tend to overply rather than underply. So you end up with a very sort of firm yarn. Whereas this is it's fuzzy, it's spongy, and it's just, oh, I love it. I'm really happy with it. It was a fun project to make as well. Obviously, it's very intuitive. It just go to stitch with some increases and some eyelets. But I could see myself knitting this shawl again. It was a fun project to have, and I started this on holiday. It is bigger than my white span, with arm span. Width, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. I knit this on 3.75mm needles, and yeah, would recommend it. So that is my finished object for this week. In terms of works in progress, let's just quickly talk about socks. I think maybe one of the socks, do I even have it here? Nope. The pink socks I showed you last week, honestly, I haven't made that much progress on it. I think I knit the heel and maybe a third of the foot. And this pair I also showed a couple of times, and it is my travel project. So because I traveled again on Tuesday, I went into the office in London. I did get some work on this done. I actually knit a fair amount of this while standing on the train, which I usually don't do, but I tried it and it worked pretty well. I just had a project bag sort of hanging from my arm. And because I have my ball as a center pull ball, I could just sort of knit out of that without any issue. So the yarn that I'm using is under the olive tree yarn in the Summer Bloom colorway. And I have since turned the heel. I turned the heel on a meeting this morning, in fact. So I have 2 stockinette sock projects going, which is great for Formula 1 this weekend. And I think that's all I have to say about that one. I've sort of slowed down on the socks. But I did, I think, finish 3 or 4 pairs within a couple of weeks, so I'm happy. Also, I mentioned that I am working on my last outstanding shawl whip, which is a little bit stuck here. And this is, of course, the Simon shawl, which I started a while back and then sort of lost steam on it, but I do really like it. I have forgotten the designer's name, so I will. My Ravelry is always linked below, so if you can use Ravelry, I try to keep my project pages reasonably up to date. Otherwise, if you can't use Ravelry, just leave a comment and I will let you know. And for this, I'm also using handspun. However, this is a worsted spun handspun. This is a 2-ply gradient, which you can see there's not that much left of it. It started off in this bright magenta, and we are going towards this natural beigey gray. And this is a silk, alpaca, and something else blend. It's really, really nice and luxurious. And it works well with this, which is a commercial spun yarn. This is the fiber company Amble, which I always forget, but I think it's a mix of wool, alpaca, and recycled nylon. So it's also quite a nice blend with the alpaca. And this is left over from a sweater I made last year, I believe. And yeah, the Simon shawl I think is really, really fun. It just creates a really fun texture. Almost reminds me of houndstooth. It's just slipping stitches. But yeah, I don't think I've knit anything in that kind of texture. It's like a garter stitch, slip stitch pattern. It's really fun. I think it's going to look really, really good when worn. Especially with this combination of yarn, I'm really enjoying it. So the last time I showed it to you, I was here, and I have since sort of stopped increasing and started decreasing again. I am slightly just changing the numbers of the pattern just because my gauge does not meet the pattern gauge. So I think my yarn is slightly thicker. I'm not sure, but I did the maths and I'm just following my own maths here. So I'm decreasing now. And as you can see, the gradient is working. I will admit I cut out a little bit of the pink in the middle because I didn't want a shawl that is like 80% pink and then 20% beige. And also, while I wanted to use up as much yarn as possible, I also didn't want this to become huge. I think it's going to be quite big anyways because essentially this is 1/2. But yeah, so now I am decreasing and it is already feeling like it is going much quicker. So I have worked a fair bit on this and I hope I can just get close to finishing it. Let's say I won't finish it by next week, but I want to make significant progress on this going forward just to finish it because I have a new beautiful kit for a shawl that I want to knit immediately. Like I just saw this kit, fell in love, bought the yarn, and I want to do that, but I need to finish some things first. So yeah, there we are on my assignment shawl. And here I am talking about finishing things when in reality I've just cast on 2 new projects. So what have I started? I mentioned last time I recorded last week that I really wanted to cast on a garment and I just couldn't figure out what to do, what to make, and I had sort of lost my knitting mojo a little bit. And then I found the perfect project because I was just looking through Stash. And of course, I stumbled across my collection of linen quill. I'm actually not using this one, it's just in the bag. So linen quill is a yarn by Pearl Soho. I am not sponsored by them, I just really like this yarn. And I have had people from the UK wondering how do you get it in the UK, and the answer is you just order it from Pearl Soho. I haven't really had issues with importing from them, except for once they put the wrong amount, like the value. They just doubled the value and put that on the package, so I had to pay a fair amount of customs. but I think it was just an honest mistake. Otherwise, I have ordered from them a few times and it has been fine. So this is their linen quill. And if you have been watching my podcast, you remember these because I used these to make a sweater in the beginning of the year. So I stumbled across these leftovers. I have a couple of like small balls from when I was knitting sleeves. And I had a whole cake, which I don't think I've used this. This is really beautiful. And I also pulled 2 more skeins from Stash that I don't think I have used before. This light pink and this marbled grey. And don't ask me about any of the color names, I don't know. I just ordered a whole bunch. Actually, I got that for Christmas from my husband. And yeah, I'm just using those. In fact, I have a label for this one. This is also linen quill, made in Peru. 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. And this one is called Peony Pink, apparently, which this may also be the wrong label. Who knows? They're all linen quill. Why am I still talking about this? Anyways, I pulled these out and I think I found my happy project that I needed to get back into knitting. And that is a scrappy sweater. So I don't know, it's just playing with color makes me so happy. So I decided to cast on a scrappy no frills sweater. And I think this was slightly inspired by Breathing Yarns. She has a really fun podcast if you're interested. And she recently unraveled and reknit a sweater in a completely different gauge. I think it may have been dropped air or something quite chunky, bulky. But I think she was also going for a scrappy look, like lots of like uneven stripes, and it just inspired me. So I made a tiny swatch. I wanted to do something with this yarn held single rather than double. And I got a 21 stitch gauge, which is a very sort of loose gauge for this yarn. It's not see-through, but it is very, very loosey-goosey. But I like that. So I went into my pattern library on Ravelry just to see what patterns I had on there with that gauge, and the no frills, like the 21 stitch gauge just tends to work for me. So I've knit many of those just because I like reusing my patterns. Essentially I just need the numbers for the cast on anyways. So I have started a no frills by Petite Knit. And yeah, can you see I'm just doing random stripes and it's bringing me so much joy. And yes, once again, I am using my favorite palette of pinks and yellows and I love it. Yeah, this just sort of sparked my knitting joy again. I'm actually really close to finishing the increases. So what I tend to do with the no frills is I tend to skip a couple of increases on the sleeves because the sleeves become quite large. So I think what I'm doing now is I'm just increasing for the body and then I will separate for the sleeves and this will go much faster. And yeah, this has grown quite a bit considering it is fingering weight yarn and I love it. Look, it's just so happy. It's quite see-through, but I once made a very, very long time ago, probably like 7 or 8 years ago, I made a similar raglan jumper. I made the robin sweater, which almost has like bat wingy sleeves on a fingering weight yarn on a very loose gauge. I think I used some Filcolana yarn. And I wore that a lot because it's very light. Like it's just like it's a bit like a sweatshirt. And I think this is going to be a sweatshirty as well. And I love it. I am very, very excited. So I am using 3.5mm needles. I am a loose knitter. And yeah, very, very happy with this. Then, because my knitting mojo came back, I was struck with inspiration again because I saw that Susanne Sommer, who is So Soon Knits, I think she's from Austria, she released another brioche cardigan. So you may know she has, is it the Shisui shrug? She has this really popular shrug pattern that is, I think, part brioche, and it's really clever. And she has apparently launched something quite similar, but it's not that complicated, and that is the Base Camp Shrug. So Base Camp Shrug by Sosu Knits, it's essentially a wearable shawl. So you knit like a triangular shawl, but then at some point you add in sleeves, and it's really, really cute. And she came out with it, and I was so tempted to get the original colors, which were from Isaya or Highland Wool, which I really like. Sorry. But yeah, I was very tempted to get the original colors, but I did have a look in Stash and I found this combination. And I may still at one point get the original colors because it's such a fun color combination. But I'm also very, very happy to announce that I am working from Stash. So this is what I've done so far. Essentially, I've started, fell in love with it, and then sort of forced myself to finish some works in progress as well. So this has sort of been languishing for the last couple of days, but I do really, really, really like it. So you can see it's one color brioche stripes, which is really fun to knit. Very simple. I think there is also a 2-color brioche stripe option, which she did in a scrappy mix of colors. But yeah, I'm just going by the sample because I really like it. So it is just brioche and increases, and I enjoy knitting brioche. I think it's really, really fun. And the colors that I am using, I only have one cone to show you. This is a JC Rennie Super Soft in the Confetti colorway, and I've talked about my love for JC Rennie. I think it's my favorite of the sort of super soft yarns that are out there. If you compare like Woolly Knit, Holst, there's a couple out there that are quite similar, and JC Rennie is my favorite. I think this is really pretty. Sometimes this, in the stripes, it reads gray, but it's like a lilac, and it's so fun. I really love it. And I do believe that once I finish this, I should have enough left over to still make another garment out of this, which is very, very exciting. And then the navy that I'm using actually has neps in it as well, and that is from Woolly Knit. So the navy is Blue John Nep in the Woolly Knit British wool, and the beige is, the brass, I think it's called, this sort of mustardy color. It's brass by Whole Super Soft, and all of these I have on cones. So yes, knitting this from Stash, and it's actually working really, really well. I don't think I'm getting gauge. I don't know, but it also doesn't matter because she does give you a gauge, but she also gives you instructions on how to just basically knit this at any gauge. So I think the original gauge was something like 26 stitches per 4 inches in brioche. And I don't know my brioche gauge. I also would say it's probably really hard to measure because it's such a squishy stitch. But I don't think I have a 26 stitch gauge on this, but it doesn't matter. So yes, I am working on this. I think I haven't decided on the size that I'm making yet, but it might not matter anyways because my gauge is off, and the instructions look really clever. So far, I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, 2 new cast-ons and a shawl that I want to cast on really badly, but I'm holding off for now. My voice is going. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I wanted to briefly show you some spinning as well. So last week I mentioned that I am doing a mild Shetland sweater spin. So I have 2 colors of natural colors of Shetland. I have natural gray and natural white, I suppose. I have 200 grams of bats in each color, and I have been spinning them long draw, woolen spun, and 2-plying them. So this is the first finished cake, because I like to cake things when they're done. And this is a spool weight. So I think it's about 350-ish meters per 100 grams. This is 116 grams of yarn. And I also have, yesterday I finished the second skein of this, which was I think like 130 grams. So I have a fair amount of this done. It is very nappy. I'm not sure if you can see. I definitely struggled with the prep for this. I think the entire quantity of fiber cost me £12. So what did I expect? But I have been spending a lot of time, even while applying, picking out naps and picking out like thick and thin pieces. So this hasn't been the most enjoyable spin, but I think it has turned out all right. Like you can see, it's not perfectly even, but maybe it was never meant to be perfectly even, especially because the darker strand of this, there's like, it goes from light gray to dark gray to brown, like all kinds of fibers are in there. So I think it was never going to be a very even spin. But yeah, so I finished the first 2 cakes essentially, which means that now I have to spin more singles to complete this or get this too close to a sweater quantity. And I'm kind of done. I sort of don't feel like it anymore. But I have started a tiny bit of the white yesterday. And I might just do a little bit of the white and ply it with... I still have a fair amount of gray singles. And just basically do that. And then hopefully I should have over 300 grams of finished yarn. So then I might just sort of knit with it and spin as I go and spin more if I need more. I'm kind of done with it, but I also know if I stop now, it'll be really hard to recreate this at a later point. But yeah, it is working. This is more of a productive spin, whereas my previous spins that I've been doing have been much more enjoyable and much more about the process. But yeah, I did want to show it to you very briefly. Like I said, the second skein is done. It's just still slightly damp, which is why I didn't bring it to show you. So yes, that is what I have been working on. Once again, I have been speeding through my projects, but you know what? Life has just been so busy, and our weekends have been really busy. My son is finally better, thank God, but now we have school settling in sessions starting during the week, and then by the weekend we're just all completely exhausted. So I thought I'd get a quick episode out, which also means that by the time the weekend rolls around, hopefully I can spend my time knitting rather than waffling at a camera. So yeah, on any other news, we had mice again. We caught 3 mice. Not fun. Did not enjoy it. But the upside is that I think we are now okay. I know what caused it. We have removed that cause. Our house is very clean now, which is also nice, I guess. And hopefully, stupid mice. I'm so sick of mice. I think it's just an issue with the terraced houses that if someone has mice, everyone has mice, because it seems impossible to seal everything off. So I feel like even if we took out our entire kitchen, which we're not planning on doing, they might still find a way to come back in. So yeah. Anyways, I think that is it in terms of life and house updates, because I need to get back to my meetings. Today is a busy day, but I'm so glad I got to chat to you guys today. Do let me know what you're working on. Thank you so much for watching. I hope wherever you are in the world that you are safe and healthy, and I hope that ideally you have some lovely yarn to play with. I will talk to you again very soon. Until then, happy knitting, happy crafting. Bye!